Hello, this is Dr. Alex Avila with Love University, and we're back. I'm an author, psychologist, and speaker, and every week we talk about how to love ourselves, others, and a higher nature, how to improve our finances, career, relationships, and spirituality. Today we have a very distinguished guest, Cohen, best-selling and award-winning author of 30 books on spirituality and self-growth, including The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore, and his latest, Spirit Means Business. Alan is also the contributing author for the #1 New York Times bestselling series, Chicken Soup for the Soul. He has over 25 years of experience in presenting and speaking on many topics of growth and spirituality and healing. And also he's been featured on Oprah.com, USA Today, Good Morning America, and he loves dogs. Welcome to the show, Alan.
Thank you so much. Good to see you, my friend.
Yeah, it's great to see you. Now, the last part really got to me. You told me that you would not give up your dog even for $1 million. Is that true, Alan?
You can't put a price on love. Yeah, I love my dog. Somebody offered me $75 for him. I would sell him for $1 million.
Wow. What do you think of that? You're in here on the image.
What's it called? Oh yeah, sorry, I'm just
my producer.
Yeah, turning the original sound on Zoom.
Okay.
Gotta love that.
Would you sell your dog for $1 million?
Would I sell my dog for $1 million?
Yes.
Depends on what kind of dog it is.
Okay. Well, this guy is not the same as you. Like in the East, we have the terms bhakti, which is devotion, compassion. Of course, we know agape, unconditional love. And we see that between people and their pets. We also see between parents and their children. However, we don't see it that much between adults, men and women, or people in relationships. You often talk about the special relationship. Marianne Williamson and yourself talk about that in Course in Miracles. That it's conditional, right? Based on whether the person gives what you want, and maybe it becomes anger if they don't. So why is it? Why do adults not have agape, unconditional love, and how do we get them to that point?
Well, we were trained out of it, Alex. As young children, we were taught to be judgmental and fearful and protective and look out for separate interests rather than joining. And so, in a relationship, we have to remember why we chose this person in the first place and to recognize that it's more important to flow and connect than to be right. Course in Miracles asks us, would you rather be right or happy? so would you rather be right or married?
Well, unfortunately, that's happening, right? People want to prove that they're the best. So how do we get people away from that? Men and women or people in romantic or love relationships or marriages to get to that unconditional love, if it's possible? Because some people think it's not possible to have unconditional love for a mate.
Oh, it's certainly possible. In fact, that's the hidden purpose of having a mate, because we are attracted for romance or sex or money or whatever. And then we realize that I'm in a relationship with a real person, not an object. When you can pierce beyond the appearances and the illusions and the fears and the judgments and see that divine being, that shining soul, that lovely person that lives inside that person you judge otherwise, then you connect heart to heart instead of mind to mind or fear to fear. And then your relationship has a chance because you're seeing through the veneer of appearances and you're seeing to the heart rather than just the mind.
Alan, I have a new book title for you. Can you love your spouse like your dog? That's going to be...
Well, that's a good, yeah, it's true.
It's true. It's very hard to do that. Yeah. You think, now is there an exercise you can give couples?
Someone said lock your dog in the car. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
A little delay.
Oh, is your dog there now? I don't know.
Now, someone said lock your dog in the trunk of your car for an hour, and then lock your mate in the trunk of your car for an hour, and then open up and see who's happier to see you.
Well, that's pretty mean, but okay, all right.
That's just a joke. Just a joke.
I get it. Okay. Well, no, that's interesting. The unconditional love is a great thing. Now, Alan, today we have a whole different mindset. We are in this virus times where people are isolated, they're fearful, health issues, economic issues, and the idea of a miracle is very powerful. Now, the miracle definition typically is some divine intervention, something that's wonderful. Now, you talk about it, and also Course in Miracles and Marianne Williamson talk about it in terms of changing fear to love, a transformation. And you also mentioned the idea that if you're having a nightmare of one bear coming at you, or 100 bears, it's all the same if you wake up from the dream, because it's just a dream. So how do we wake up from this dream of fear and the virus right now?
We have to remember that all fears are the same, and the magnitude of fear does not make it any more real. And so this coronavirus is a huge opportunity for everyone to choose between fear and love. And if you sit and you watch the news all day long, you're going to get really depressed and really angry and really scared. But if you choose to seize the opportunity to connect with your family, take quiet time and do your meditation or your prayer or your creative writing, this is a huge opportunity for people to go in instead of giving their power away to what's going on outside. And that's the shift we all need to make, to source ourselves from our divine being rather than just worldly events, which are usually fear-based.
Yeah, like in your book, you say something like the higher nature power of God tells you that all is well, you're loved, and you're not alone. So it's kind of like an inner voice that tells you these things, that gives
Yeah.
you confidence and that faith. But here's the idea, Alan. Let's say a lot of people, and myself, I do this sometimes, is kind of watch a lot of this negative, fearful news. Should we ignore it and put our heads in the sands and believe it doesn't exist? Or how much of this should we let permeate our consciousness, all this stuff that's happened? The
I
negative
think
part.
you should watch just enough to know what's going on and then turn it off. There's a certain amount of news that's hard facts and a certain amount that's drama and opinion and fighting and arguments and weirdness.
Yes.
The news plays on fear. The scarier they can make it, the more power they have to get you to sit and watch it. So you have to sift between what's really going on and the hype and the fear factor that media plays on, which is huge.
Right. Because I know every time you click on some news items, someone's making money on it because the headlines sell. If it was a headline that says everything is peaceful and loving in the world, nobody would click on it probably, right? Because
Yeah, I mean, I think San Francisco newspaper did an experiment years ago where they printed a scary headline, and then simultaneously the same day they printed a newspaper with a peaceful headline, and scary headlines sold 10-1.
unfortunately,
So,
horror
so we
movies.
can't blame the media. You can't blame the media because people are buying those newspapers. People are watching the TV. People are buying the items that the commercials advertise on the news. So it's a co-creation. We have to withdraw our participation in the fear end of it, and then it takes two to tango. Then there's no more energy match where fear is put out and fear is matched.
Interesting. Now I think you live in Hawaii. Is there any virus out there? I heard you guys don't have too much of that. Is that true?
Very little compared to the rest of the country.
Wow.
Very little, yeah.
The healthy
It's a
living,
problem,
or
but not a
people
big.
more positive there? What do you think?
Well, I think they shut down the borders.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah, about 3 months ago, they stopped people from coming in. So they managed it quite strictly. Yeah.
Makes sense. Now, in the Course in Miracles Made Easy, your one of your great books, you kind of make it easy to understand the Course, which is a very deeply spiritual thing. So I'm going to ask you some questions, and I want you to tell me if this is true or false based on your materials and the Course. For example, I am entitled to miracles. I am a miracle worker. Is that true or false?
Absolutely true. We're all entitled to miracles. We're all capable of being channels through which miracles come to earth for others.
Isn't that a little presumptuous to say I'm a miracle worker? Am I a shaman or something, or some kind of guru, or what is it? What do you
A
mean?
miracle worker doesn't mean that you wave your hand and a gold watch comes out.
Yeah.
The definition of a miracle is a shift in perception from fear to love. So somebody comes to you and they say, I'm scared,
Yes.
and you help them feel more relaxed, and you soothe them, and you empower them, encourage them, and they've moved from fear to love, then you've just achieved a miracle. A miracle is a change of mind, not necessarily a physical manifestation.
That's a beautifully well put. We can all be miracle workers, you're saying.
Not only can we, but we're all destined to do it because our nature is love more than fear.
So if we're at some restaurant or someplace and the waiter is kind of nervous and rushing around, you can maybe say something to lighten their day, like appreciate your service or something like that, and a smile.
Absolutely.
So something like that.
Give them a bigger tip. I was in the Honolulu airport, and there was a female security guard who approached me, and we started talking about her life. And she said, well, I'm a mother of 9 children. And I said, well, what would you like to do for yourself? She said, oh, I'd like to get my nails done. I said, well, why don't you get your nails done? Why don't you just, take good care of you? You're taking care of your kids all the time. You're working a full-time job. And she started to cry because no one else in her life said, please take care of yourself. So that was a kind of a miracle because her day became better as a result of our conversation.
I think you also helped her with a seminar or something like that as well. Did she come to one of your talks?
I gave her some information. I invited her to one of my seminars, yeah.
Oh, very nice. You're very humble about that.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah. So basically, empathy is listening to someone as if you were them, and compassion is to relieve their suffering. And those are very powerful philosophical ideas that we can apply.
Yeah, that's nicely put. Sure, I'd agree with that. Yeah.
Now, another
Yeah.
another question, Alan, based on the course. I am haunted by my past. There's nothing I can do about it. True or false?
Oh, it's false because you haunt yourself with your past. We have a choice about which thoughts we focus on. So if you're dwelling in a painful past, you have the choice to shift your thoughts to something more positive and empowering. We dig ourselves our own rut. A rut is a grave with the ends knocked out. So the more we keep going over what doesn't work, the more we entrench ourselves in what doesn't work. So one of the lessons of course is I can elect to change all thoughts that hurt. So we have the power to shift the focus of what we're thinking about, so we're empowered by our thoughts instead of debilitated by them.
Interesting. Like in psychology, we talk about the critical inner voice, the rational thoughts, for cognitive behavioral psychologists, to basically change your thoughts and your feelings. Now, one thing that you said is very beautiful in there is that God or higher nature, whatever you believe in, purifies our thoughts and only leaves the loving memories. Kind of like a spiritual selective memory kind of idea. How does that work? How does a higher nature or power purify our past to only leave the positive memories?
Because I had a friend that I had an argument with in high school, and I felt terrible about it after we graduated. And I thought about that was my primary memory of him for 40 years. And then one day, my assistant said, George Ringel called, he misses you. And we had lunch. And I said, I'm so sorry about that argument. He said, I don't even remember that. He said, all I remember is that you waited for me every day, especially in the rain.
Wow.
And I realized that I had carried that single memory for 40 years as my memory of our relationship, and that really hurt me. Meanwhile, all he remembered was that I was a nice guy. So basically, I hurt myself by dwelling on my mistake when I could have just as easily dwelled on the love we shared, and we became friends once again after that 40 years. So every thought is a choice that we choose to focus on or release. And when we focus on the bad thoughts of the past, we stay there. But when we focus on the better thoughts of the past or the present or the future, then we're heading in a whole new direction.
And you believe that the higher power, God or spirit, that whatever you believe in, is able to help you do that? Does it purify your thoughts? How does that, the higher nature, help us?
Because higher nature is loving, it's whole, it's empowering, it's forgiving. And when we line up our thoughts with that energy, we receive the benefit of that experience. So it's not like God steps in and does something for us. It's that we align with the mind of God, which is always empowering. We're choosing to match that energy, and we get the benefit of making that choice.
We had your friend on our show, Neil Donald Walsh, Conversations with God. He says that God is always talking to us, but we may not be always listening.
That's true. It's like a radio station, it's always broadcasting on one frequency, but if you don't have your tuner tuned to that station, you don't get the station. So we have to recalibrate our tuners so we receive messages that empower us rather than
Definitely, especially now in these times that we have. Now, the other thing, Alan, you were talking about, that's very interesting, is that you talk about the death of self, or what you call ego, and the death of the world, or end of the world, in terms of the way we look at it. So those are very interesting ideas. The first one, death of the so-called, I guess you call it false ego, the accumulation of these critical inner thoughts, or even our name or our body as us. But on the other hand, people would say, wait a minute, I need to have self-confidence. Don't I need to have a strong ego and self-love? What do I want to eradicate that? Shouldn't I keep that?
There's a difference between loving yourself and becoming so absorbed in the fearful self that you lose the love for yourself. So you need enough ego to survive in the world, but not to consume you. Does that make sense? It's like ego keeps you on the proper side of the road so you don't run into the opposite cars.
Yes.
But then you have to keep it in check if it wants to do things that hurt you.
Interesting. I think one time you were talking about, you said instead of original sin, you said original innocence.
Yeah.
So you feel people have some kind of inner goodness about them that they need to tap
Yeah,
into?
we all do. We're all good by our nature. Why do we love to be around children and pets? We talked about dogs because they're originally innocent. They haven't been trained out of their innocence. So, when a baby comes in the room, you just want to play with the baby and talk to it and hug it and pet it. And when a puppy comes in the room, oh my God, you just want to play with it and rub its belly. And, those are connections to heaven. They still remember where they came from. They're still connected to source energy with a capital S. And so we're also craving that innocence, that when we're with somebody who is innocent, we're reminded of the innocence that's living inside of us that we've been missing.
Definitely. I have a little, actually a miniature golden retriever, kind of like a psychology dog,
Huh.
for people. What kind of dog do you have, Alan? Or do you have dogs?
I have a family of Pomeranian Maltese. We have 4.
All right, okay, those are very cute. Fluffy dogs, right? Usually, the Pomeranians.
Yeah, very
Now,
fluffy.
the other thing, Alan, this is actually very pertinent now. We had a show called "What Would You Do If the World Came to an End?" That was very popular.
Yeah.
You said the world should end, but you're not saying the actual world in a
Yeah.
physical way, but you're talking about in a spiritual way. What do you mean by that? We should end the world.
Well, so much of the world that we've created is painful and depressing and warlike and diseased. I would not miss that world. I did a series during the lockdown, and one of the shows was called "Pray That the World Does Not Go Back to Normal." And one of the purposes of COVID is to really get us to reboot and reset our world so it works better. So, the world that the ego has created is full of horror. And that would be a good world to end. It's really possible to have a world that's not filled with horror, that's based on connection, mutual support, and caring and forgiveness. That is the world that we're intended to live in. Every other world is a big fat version of that. And so I want that nasty world to end so we can make space for a world that we're born to create, born to live in.
That makes sense. I mean, some people talk about Armageddon, the final battle between good and evil, the end of the world. And then there's something called the omega point, which is the point of unification, where they say that love and connection will be the ultimate result of all these things that are happening. Is that what you think? Are we going to destruction, or are we going to a mega point? Do you think?
I think each of us has to make our own choice. Some people will be destroyed, and some people go to a mega point. I think what's happening right now is there's a split in consciousness, and there are actually simultaneous realities occurring in our country and on the planet. And some people are living in a very painful, hard world, and some people are choosing to make this time productive and healing. So I think both of those destinies are possible. Yeah, it's like, you and I each get to choose which reality we will live in starting today. That's the ultimate choice that each
I like that, yeah. So that's going to be, even for our listeners right now, you need to choose, do you want the false reality world, or do you want the beautiful love world? But you told me that a lot of people choose a false world. And I have a term called negative excitement. People through anger and aggression kind of get a thrill out of it, even the horror movies you talk about in their mind. What do we do about that? Because nowadays it's like a fear inverted becomes anger. Have you noticed most people are angry today? Have you noticed that a lot of anger out there?
Yeah, a lot of anger, sure.
Frustration, anger. So what do we do about that part of it? How do we get to that, the more loving part?
Well, my teacher said that anger is fear under pressure. If you peel any anger back, you get to fear.
Yes.
And fear is the denial of love. And so if you can recognize the fear that's been consuming you, someone said fear is FEAR, false evidence appearing real.
Yes.
There's a lie behind every fear. And if you can expose the lie and recognize the truth that it's covering, you're released from that fear and the anger that the fear engendered. It's all connected.
It's pretty powerful. Now, the other thing we need to talk about, Alan, is economic side of things. Say money, prosperity, or lack of. Millions of people are out of work. People are suffering economic crisis. Now, you wrote a book that's called Spirit Means Business. I think it's your latest book. And you talk about wealth as being defined not by standard of living, but by standard of thinking. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then you talk about reversals, different ways to look at, I guess, money and prosperity. You said instead of competing and struggling to get money, you can focus on giving to others and appreciating what you have. Now, why is that such an important reversal in terms of acquisition of things?
Because the law of consciousness is that whatever you focus on, you get more of. So the more you focus on lack, the more lack you're aware of. The more you focus on disease, the more disease you're aware of. And there's a crucial turning point in all of our lives when we decide to focus on what we want instead of what we don't want. So even if you're financially struggling, if you can shift your attention to the forms of wealth you have besides money. So may have a wonderful family, a great pet, great spiritual path, great teachings. You might like nature, you might like music, you might like reading. You might be healthy. And so there's so many forms of wealth and abundance that we already own independent of money. Money is one slice of a larger pie of wealth. And if you're focused in on that one slice that seems lacking, you're going to feel more and more lack. But if you can shift your attention to the other slices, you become absorbed in a wealth mentality, which actually attracts to you more wealth, including money.
Exactly. They also say that struggle is an arrow pointing you in the right direction. And you talk about Taoism, which is the flow of things, and also Aikido, which is harmonizing with your opponent's energy. And I've studied some of that as well. But at some point, do we need to give up the struggle? Let's say we're in this relationship is not working out, this career, but we want to persevere at the point. But when do we know when we need to give it up? Is there a point when we stop being perseverant?
Well, I think we should always give up struggle because struggle is painful. I think struggle is a mentality more than an act. And I think you can work hard and persevere and have determination and overcome obstacles. But you can do it all from a point of celebrating your vision and heading for a goal rather than struggling. I teach people struggle is not required. Action is required, determination is required, but not struggle. Struggle is a mentality. And once you're in the struggle mentality, you lose your energy. It's debilitating. So you want to ask yourself, how could I be approaching this more successfully without being absorbed in a sense of struggle and loss and sacrifice and sorrow? That's the critical shift we all need to make.
I always think like in business, you got to, I think you mentioned sacrifice for your business. You got to work a lot of hours and almost struggle over obstacles and people that don't believe in you. Isn't that part of what you do for a business?
Well, I work very hard. I work many hours a day and I read lots of books and I do lots of coaching.
Yes.
And I don't feel a sense of struggle about it. I enjoy my work so much and I have meaningful connections with people that when you burn with the fire of purpose, obstacles that would otherwise seem like a struggle become stepping stones.
I like that. It's powerful. Burn with the fire of purpose.
And so it's all the consciousness and attitude and mentality you're bringing to it more than the actual acts and facts.
Now, Alan, I know you're a very successful man and you've helped a lot of people, but has there been something in your life that stopped you? Like, did you overcome any obstacles? Has it always been easy for you? Or did you have a...
Well, I've had fear and unworthiness. I grew up Jewish, so I learned guilt very well. So I felt guilty and unworthy, and I would judge myself, and why do I deserve... My main obstacle has been my mind.
Okay.
My fearful thoughts, my self-judgment.
Did you meet a great woman? Did you find a religion? What changed your mindset to success?
I went to a seminar in graduate school, and we had 12 people who holed up in a cabin up in the mountains, and we just had a marathon weekend. And at some point, I realized I wasn't fooling anybody. And somebody said to me, Alan, it's okay just to be yourself. And I realized that I'd been postured, forcing myself to look cool and be attractive. And I've been carrying this huge burden of image management. And I realized, I might be good enough just as I am. And I really don't have to change to please people. And the moment I made the decision to live authentically rather than try to prove myself, everything shifted. My life took off. I became a happier person. I became more successful. So it was really, Alex, just coming to peace with myself that made the entire difference in my life.
It's powerful. Now, the other concept I think that kind of relates to this, Alan, is you call it matching. You say what is yours is going to come to you, or is yours. But I work a lot with single people. I wrote a book called Love Types. It's compatibility with personality type. And with a lot of singles, they're very frustrated today. They can't meet the right person. They're on these applications all day. And actually, Reggie, my producer, Reggie, can you come over here? This is a young man who's a wonderful young man. He's 30 years old, but he's never had a relationship. He's only had two dates in his life. And we have a little bet. I said, if you find a woman to go out with, I'll pay for it $100. But he can't. He hasn't been able to do it for a couple of years. Well, I mean, he's very shy. That's a problem. So, what is your advice to Reggie here? What can you tell him?
I think he's a nice-looking guy. I think there are probably a lot of people who would like him.
Well,
Okay,
thank you.
right. But give us some spiritual advice. Let's say that he's trying too hard.
If Reggie and I sat down to coach,
Okay.
I would ask him why a single life might be more attractive to you than a married life. There's always an element of choice, and most of the
Is it more attractive to you, Reggie, the single life?
people I know who choose to remain single would rather do that. They say they want a relationship, but their intention to be alone is more powerful than their intention to be with a partner. So,
well, what if he really wants it, but he just doesn't have the skills or confidence to get a good woman?
I would ask Reggie, what are your fears of being in a relationship? You know,
What are your fears, Reggie, of being in a relationship?
I guess always just well, as with the most things in my life, failure. Just not measuring up. And that's probably injects itself into my interactions with women, and they detect that. So yeah.
Okay, so you think you're scaring them off with your fear, Reggie? Is that
Maybe,
what you're saying?
yeah.
Okay, so what is it?
Yeah,
How
so
do you
fear,
fear?
it's kind of like fear. You say, I want something, but then the fear keeps it at a distance. So what would be the best thing that could happen to you in a relationship, Reggie? Why would you want one? What would be your ideal vision of a relationship? Let's hear.
Well, basically, my ideal vision for a relationship would be like having a partner, like an equal, somebody who I can who can support me in my endeavors, and I can support them in theirs, and yeah, just like I said, an equal. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you deserve that. I see you as deserving that.
Thank you.
I don't think there's any major shift that has to happen before you can deserve that. Do you know you deserve a great relationship like that? Do you feel like you're worth having somebody who loves you?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I truly believe that as you drop into knowing your worth for it, that becomes a very powerful magnet to let somebody in. There's an old Eagles song, you just let somebody love you, they'll come in. So, you and I know each other just a little bit, but you seem to be a really good guy, good-hearted guy, a smart guy, a nice-looking guy. I mean, I think that you're totally worthy of a great partner.
Wow. Well, thanks, Alan. I think I'm gonna lose my $100 because I think he might get his date. Right. Good job, Reggie. Thank you.
Thank you.
Send me your wedding photo, okay?
That'd be kind of nice. I like that. So yeah, so love is an issue, Alan, but also money is an issue for a lot of people. And you have an interesting concept that I kind of use in my book, Invincible You, that came out last year, which is the idea that money is a form of loving energy. And that, for example, you give money to someone for product or service, and then you appreciate that, and you're grateful for that. It was a form of love. And then they pass that along to other people. And that's a whole different way of looking at money than the usual way of, you said, having power or getting what you want.
Yeah.
So tell me about that in terms of your idea.
Well, equate money with love. And just like you said, that when you do something for me and I give you money, I'm saying thank you, I'm loving you. When we trade money, so basically redefine money not so much as a circulation of currency, but the circulation of love. And every time you circulate love, the amount of love in the world increases. So when somebody's paying you, they're loving you. Thank you for loving me. When I'm paying you, let me thank you for flying me to Japan. Let me thank you for my health food. Let me thank you for my automobile gas. And so basically, it's a wonderful, people say money is evil. No, money is love. Money is a chance to us really to empower each other and raise our frequency by supporting and thanking each other.
Definitely. Another idea, this also is an Eastern concept, is the idea that you work not for the accolades, but you give the fruits of the labor to the higher nature, God or whatever it is. And therefore, you're utilizing your talents, for the good of all. And therefore, you can do infinite work. So there's no like rain and all that. So do you that? I mean, you say you work a lot of hours. How many hours do you work, Alan, for example? I mean, as a writer and all that.
It depends. Like when I'm traveling, I'll work 8, 10, 12 hours a day, and I'm home. It's like writing like 10, 12, 14 hours a day for like 9 months. And it was so much fun. I was not tired at all. Time went like that. When you're doing something you love, time disappears. And there was people say, that guy's really working hard. No, I wasn't. I was having so much fun that I was motivated to put that time in. So it's not a matter of time you're working. It's really the quality of energy you're working with.
And I guess you're given in Spanish we call the term don, which means don divino, gift from God or gift from the higher. So you're utilizing that for the purpose of helping humanity.
Right.
And the other idea, this is something you call generosity. I call it bonds of affinity. is when you may sometimes overpay a merchant or pay a little extra without haggling, you can think you're helping that person's family, right? You're giving love to that person or maybe helping their business, as opposed to thinking I've got to get the best deal. So you think, is that a good way to look at things, that you don't have to always get the best deal every single time?
No, that's a very old paradigm. I mean, the best deal is where everyone wins.
Yes.
We've been taught that a good deal is where you get the most and the other person gets the least. But it's not that way. I want to walk away from all my transactions knowing everybody's satisfied. This is called happy money. It means that the giver is happy, the receiver is happy. It's like making sure everybody's taken care of and nobody's left out. That's right. We would call that right livelihood.
Interesting. Yeah, the word generosity, a lot of people are what we call cheap or tightwads. I have a friend of mine who's, he's a nice guy. He's very generous in his time and energy, but not with money. We go out to eat, and he always forgets his wallet, so I end up paying for the meal. So, and he has a lot of money. So why are people like that? Why are people raised, even though they have money, to have that tight mentality?
Yeah, we all have our blind spot, don't we? And so, if he's generous with other things, but not money, that's his point of learning. That's his cutting edge of his education. So, he'll need to apply the generosity he feels in the other parts of his life to his financial life eventually.
And that'll bring more different ways if he does that.
Yeah, I mean, when you participate in the circulation of money, the more money I spend and give away, the more money comes to me. I'm a fluid channel of circulation. That's, prosperity is about circulating, not about hiding and tightwadding.
Definitely. The other thing is, in our society today, we have a lot of social comparisons. In psychology, we call it downward comparison. If you compare yourself to someone who's doing worse, people actually feel better. If you compare someone who's doing better than you, you might feel worse. So if you're making 100,000 and they're doing only 50, you kind of feel a little better. But if they're making 200,000, you're making 100,000, you might feel envious, as opposed to comparing yourself to yourself. So why do you think people do that? Do you see that very often, downward comparison or upward comparison?
It's ego. It's just ego. Mark Twain said that comparison is the thief of joy. And, it's like, if you know who you are and you're confident in who you are, you're soaring. But when you look at the other guys doing better, the other guys doing worse, that separates us. That's like building a wedge between us. And you'll win because you'll think you win because you're better than somebody else. But as soon as you turn around, you lose because you're worse than somebody else. So you never win the comparison game. You can't win the comparison game, never.
So you say to appreciate what you have and also realize that you can be inspired by their success. If they made it, you can make it too.
Exactly. Instead of being envious, that guy got that job and I didn't. Wow. If he's in my consciousness,
right,
then you spot it, you got it. That means if I'm aware that he could succeed like that,
right,
then I can also succeed like that.
Exactly. Or that attractive partner or that trip vacation, whatever you want. You can also have it. So you're inspired.
Exactly. Celebrate their successes. Yeah.
Definitely. Now, the other thing, and this is something we see in prosperity literature, the original stuff, that they talk about first buy something, and then you're motivated to earn the money to get it. So kind of like a law of attraction. So the lady that buys a coat, or a nice jewelry, and then, she has a higher level of thinking to attract more money. But on the other hand, wouldn't that make you broke also if you start buying these luxury cars and you can't afford it?
It might.
So how do you draw the line between prosperity, attraction?
You have to balance passion with reason.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of shooting your whole wad on something and hoping the money comes back. Some people, I think that's healthy in doses, but I don't think you should be stupid with money. I think you should be wise with money.
Right.
Keep stretching, but don't put yourself at a serious risk unless you feel extremely guided to do so.
Right. If you feel that's going to turn your life around, buying that whatever that new thing is to give you more confidence or something.
Yeah.
Make it happen. Now, the other thing is you mentioned about value. You said know your value, offer your value, and then receive value in return. So, charge a reasonable price for your good or services, and, don't be worried about what people can pay. And I write about the idea of be like the sun, the sun that shines on rich people, poor people, young, old, so-called attractive or unattractive. But the sun doesn't mind if someone turns their back on the sun or has an umbrella. It keeps shining no matter what. So the idea that if you have something that people may want and some people may not want it, but you're okay with that because they can find something else. Is that your idea?
It's not about results. It's about what you put out, so you shine on everyone and people who can receive it, and those who don't. It's more about what you put out than what comes back. And the truth is, Alex, that when you put it out, it'll come back. but it may not come back through the person or form and timing that you're demanding. You cannot afford to demand such a result. You have to just release it and trust that the universe will support you in turn.
And one concept I really liked is you talked about spiritual economics. So we talk about financial economics, is a consumption of services, but also we consume our own energy, maybe in wrong ways. People may spend time on the internet looking at negative news, social media, excessively, and that drains them of energy and time. So
Yeah.
how do we conserve our time and energy that way, for something more positive?
Well, I have this little maxim that I think boils all of psychology and religion and spirituality down to two commandments. One is do what brings you life, and two is quit doing what deadens you.
Powerful. That's very nice. Do what brings you
And I
life.
think if you follow that, do what brings you life and quit doing what deadens you. And if you're true to that, you're gonna master all the lessons of religion and spirituality and psychology. It's all about maximizing life force. That's what all life is about.
So I guess for you, dogs, riding, and what, traveling? Is that your three things that you would?
Not so much these days, with COVID and all that, but I'm doing tons of Zoom webinars and tons of coaching.
Yes.
So even in the lockdown, I stayed really, really well connected to lots of people. That's been a blessing. I used to make fun of technology, but technology is a blessing. It lets us stay connected.
Exactly. Well, it's been a great pleasure to have you on the show, Alan. And where can people hear more about your work, your website, and things that you're working on that they can get into?
Yeah, my website is alancohen.com, ALANCOHEN.com.
Perfect. Well, again, Love University students, this has been a wonderful show today because we've learned that you can have the miracle of love every day in our life, turn fear into love. And like you said, find what enlivens you, not what deadens you. And also give that to other people without expectation. That's the power. So if you want to be on our show, if you have any questions about today's show, if you have any show ideas, contact us at loveuniversitylove@gmail.com. Visit us at loveuniversity.love or call us at 310-226-8090. You can also like us on Facebook at Love University Podcast. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Love, letter U, Podcast. Also, make sure you subscribe to our channels at Podbean, iTunes, Spotify, and SoundCloud. So until next time, put away your notebooks, your iPads, your phones, your pens, and anything else, and go out and create a miracle week of love. This is Dr. Alex Avila and Love University.